All right, to this now, there have been concerns about failure to formalize South Africa's taxi industry. The sector has, for years, been the backbone of the South African economy, marred by constant violence and disruptions. Joining us now is Dr Mathetha Mokonyama, Head of Transport Systems and Operations at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. Doc, good to have you, and thank you very much for coming in.
Good afternoon.
The Minister, speaking to one of my colleagues, she says that I am very concerned that we do seem to be failing to formalize the taxi industry. Immediately I read that, I'm saying, who is we, and what did we do in an attempt to formalize, and why are we saying it seems like we are failing?
It's a failure from both sides, from the side of government and also from the side of the leadership of the taxi sector, the taxi industry as we call it. This conversation has been ongoing since 1977. So it's an almost 50-year-old conversation about, permits. And what government has failed primarily to do is to recognize that this is a network industry. It's not about the routes. It's like saying to a miner, I'm giving you a license to, I'm giving individual license to miners to go mine, as opposed to saying, here is a mine, I want you to mine it. I'm giving you a license to mine it productively. So what needs to really happen, and what should have happened, is that government should have said, here's an area in which you will operate as a network, and here is a license to operate, and these are the conditions. Some of those conditions should be about the quality of service. But the operators, the associations themselves, should have organized themselves properly as a business to be able to respond.
If they are able to do that for airlines, why are they failing to do that for the taxi industry?
Well, I suppose at the heart of it is, to what extent do we value an ordinary person's life? I mean, the minister's speech, budget speech earlier in the year, it goes on and on about aviation and the breakdown and how the ATNS, the navigation services, will be restored. Very little about public transport, yet public transport moves a lot more people. So essentially it's about, to what extent do we value life?
Yeah. I mean, we would have heard a number of transport ministers, including the one who's now the Secretary General of the ANC, when he was Minister of Transport, would have hosted a big conference in Daba, got some folks in, including Santako, and maybe they would have left the others out, and they were complaining outside, saying, why are you having an agreement with Santako outside of us? But coming out of that, he said, look, they will come on board a bit later on, but what we are agreeing on is this thing, formalization of the taxi industry. And too many thought that that meant, well, the taxi industry can now pay tax, and be registered with SARS, so that we know what they are doing, and then we can regulate them.
Yes, well, they do register, with SARS. To what extent they pay tax is another thing, because you can always declare that you're not making profits and not pay much. But formalization should go further. The regulations that are being placed on e-hailing, for example, you want to know the movement of vehicles, the passengers, and so forth. That is what should have happened. That should have happened with the broader public transport, including the minibus taxis. Digitalization of the entire network, knowing where the vehicles are moving, the passengers, and so forth, so that you're able then to respond better to customer needs, design the services better. But that has not happened. But also making sure that the associations themselves group themselves as a business. You cannot be dealing with individual operators. It's a network, just like telecommunications. It's a network industry, and it works more efficiently when it's operating and designed as a network.
So the minister envisaged the formalization of this sector akin to what she calls normal competitive business practices. What is she talking about?
Well, it's up to the minister to talk about, to explain that. But public transport is not about, competing against each other. The Competition Commission earlier, some time ago, some couple of years ago, released a report, and they looked at the public transport services from a competition angle. You cannot say we are competing. you're providing a public service. So you should be designing it to respond to the needs of users.
Yeah.
Of course, you need to design it such that it provides the service efficiently, so that the price that we charge to a customer is competitive globally, so that labor costs in South Africa are competitive to labor costs elsewhere, the countries that we trade with, but also the countries that we compete with.
Yeah. But the players in the industry don't see it that way. I mean, the players in the industry themselves, operators, associations, look at particular routes as lucrative routes, and that's the word that they use. And because you look at a route as a lucrative route, then it creates competition for who gets access to that lucrative route. That's one aspect of a competition of it. The other aspect now is the e-hailing sector that's coming in, saying, well, the e-hailing sector is now picking up scholar transport routes. It's also picking up staff at private companies, but they're saying they're e-hailing. So there's competition there, once again, for the lucrativeness of a particular sector. You've got rapid buses that come in, they become destroyed because, again, it's a competition for routes. So how do you unscramble that?
Well, if two things there. If you look at your revenue only as coming from fares, it's short-sightedness. A network business like it is, you should be generating revenue from the nodes that you are saving, properties that you are saving. Land should be able to give you revenue as an association, as operators. So just like what aviation services do, if you look at Airports Company, a lot of their revenue, almost half of their revenue, sometimes some time ago it was even more than half, it was from non-aeronautical services. It was from the land. So there's a lot of value that could be generated from the land itself, not just looking at passengers. Because in any case, if you look into the future, the industry is going to be suffering from loss of revenue. When the rail operations are being restored, a lot of the operators will be losing customers. Remember, there's the people now working from home. So all these factors are conspiring actually against the focus on reliance on just fare revenue. And that will be realized if we start moving more towards a network-based licensing and not this route-based licensing, which is a source of conflict, actually.
Yeah. Now, of course, you're saying it based on numbers. They'll tell you that they've got the numbers, they've got the sheer numbers, and they've got the force. Whether you say the force in terms of systemic or in terms of the structure or in terms of armory, which again is a little bit of a problem for law enforcement agencies to deal with them. So how do you deal with people who see themselves as a force in that context? I mean, most of the time, like we're talking today, it's them who close the roads. It's not the government that will shut them down.
It's been coming, and it's going to get worse if it's not addressed. Next week, it could be, you as a father cannot be transporting your child. We want your child to use our services. So somewhere you need to draw the line. It cannot be that we allow this lawlessness. But it's been coming, all these years, from way back, from the 80s. So government has not been able to keep to their promises. In 1995, for example, there were promises that were made through the National Taxi Tax Team. Promises that if you read that document today, you'll think that it was developed yesterday. So from way back, from 30 years ago, there were certain promises that government said we were going to be implementing, but they have not done so. And every time there's a hotla, there's a meeting, they recirculate all those things. So it's about implementing what you promise, right? So this selective enforcement, of the laws, the road traffic laws, is again another source of the problem. If today you're enforcing the laws, and then for the next 3 months you relax, and then you come with operation whatever, you start enforcing new laws, it's not sustainable. Right. You need to be sustainable in how you enforce your laws. If you haven't been able to do so for the past 40, 50 years, then you need to start having a proper conversation with the operators about how we can improve, how we can cooperate, including things like self-regulation. How can we bring in that self-regulation sustainably into the operations?
Doc, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming in this afternoon. That's Dr. Mathetha Mokonyama, Head of Transport Systems and Operation at the CSIR.